Hey, I'm Amadeus, and this is Gay in Rural France, a podcast where I talk about queer life in the countryside, mental health, and everything in between. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the first episode of the relaunched Gay in Rural France podcast / YouTube channel. If you don't know me, I am Amadeus. I live in a very, very rural area of France in Charente-Limousin, which is in the southwest of France. And I renovate very slowly with a limited budget a medieval chateau, half of a medieval chateau. So I had wanted to have an outlet that's different to the Chateau channel because I feel that there's a lot of things that I want to talk about that consider mental health, that consider life, that consider being queer in a very rural area. And I think this is the right platform. That's why it's a separate channel to my normal channel. And here we can sit down and chat about things and build up another community of like-minded people who enjoy content around all these topics. So let me set the scene for you if you are just listening to this podcast, because this podcast is available on all your favorite podcast portals, but also on YouTube with visuals. I am sitting in my grand salon in the living room downstairs in the chateau, and I have just put on a fire that is crackling in the back, and I have been enjoying the warmth. It's a Sunday and it's quite gloomy outside. It's not really nice. So yeah, it's still this time of the year where it's late winter and everything's a bit like, it's taking time to actually go somewhere. So why have I wanted to relaunch this whole project? The project was called Queer French Farmhouse when I launched it, and it was really just a podcast about being queer in a rural area and about also misconceptions about literally anything that was also queer. And I thought of opening up this spectrum a bit even more and talk about mental health issues. I did talk about my journey, how I got here, how this affected my marriage, how I got a divorce. We talked about a lot of different aspects of my life and rural life in general in France. So I have been wanting, like I said, a platform for much deeper conversations where I can just sit down with you on a one-on-one. We'll just do a recording without cuts, and we'll just sit together and enjoy whatever drink you want to have, for example. And I'll just talk to you about things that are going on in my mind. And I just really wanted to find also a medium to connect even more with some of you, because some of your lovely comments on some of my videos opening up about your stories, about losing loved ones, about moving to France, about starting a new life. And I see that there's a lot of gay men on my platform, and I think it's a chance to open up a dialogue and to actually give us all a platform that we can exchange in the comments, we can listen to one another. Also, if you want me to talk about certain things, about certain aspects of life in rural France, then leave a comment down below and I'll try to answer it in one of the next upcoming episodes. So what can you expect? Basically, queer life in rural France. I mean, it can be so France and just this rural areas can be so different in how they perceive queer people and how the visibility for queer people is. And I think France is no exception. There's a lot of areas in the world where it's like this, where it is a big contrast to city life. But then again, I have to say that I personally found that I have had a deeper connection with my surroundings and my neighbors, people who live around me, than I had in the city. So that is my experience, and people have been very, very respectful. I have not experienced any hate so far, at least not on a level, that was very visible. Yes, I've had a few like weird moments, but all in all, I have to say my experience has been quite positive. So I just wanted to let you also know why this podcast matters, because I think it's really important to make queer people visible in rural areas and show maybe also other queer people's stories. I have already in the back of my mind a few interviews planned, also about generally life in rural areas and people who come here, not necessarily expats, but also other French people who come here from bigger cities because they want to lead a different life. They want a life of community rather than being isolated like in the cities. Sometimes it is. It's not always like the case, I understand fully, but I think a lot of us had those experiences. I also want to give hope and insight because I am 37 as of this recording right now. And I wish when I was younger, and I know visibility was different when I was younger, people weren't visible. There were no openly queer people, or those who were absolutely like over the top, which is fantastic, amazing. But to have more role models and to have more people who actually give you hope and give you insight and tell you it's okay and there's many ways to lead a life, and this doesn't necessarily, you don't need to fit into a box, you don't need to fit into a box, because boxes are the things that separate us, like borders. No, we don't need that. I think we can all thrive in our individuality, in the things that make us special. And I think that all of us have something that makes us special. And I think it's just about finding it and about accepting it and about just loving yourself in the end. And this is what I want to do here. I want to give hope. I want to be the person that says like, hey, it's all right. It's okay. It's gonna be okay, even if it's not okay right now. So yeah, and then I also want to talk about the realities of living abroad. I am born in Poland. I have immigrated to Germany when I was a little child with my parents. So I basically grew up in Germany, did the whole education system there. I have spent some time outside of Germany, especially in the US, because part of my family lives in the US. So I've been going back there for all my summer vacations, for example. So I've kind of grown up in between cultures, and I really can't pinpoint what kind of culture I would belong to, or how I would categorize this myself. Again, boxes. So I kind of I think of myself more European, but then European again, I don't know. I have a big problem with putting people in their boxes, but that's just also my personal aspect. And and then I made the move to France, obviously, when I was in my mid-30s. Yeah, it's my third year coming up in France now, so I started my third year here. And yeah, and all those challenges that come with it, about learning another culture, learning to get along, learning to how the people are, what premises they kind of run on, what their beliefs are, what their cultural references are. I mean, that's a big thing. And I want to talk about all of this in the podcast as well. So, and why this is all so personal to me is this is just first of all, it's the fear of judgment, I feel that sometimes we hide who we are because we're really afraid of being judged. But I think a wise man, which is my boyfriend, once told me that it actually really doesn't matter what others think, It's like, who cares what others think? I mean, probably they don't even think like you are not the center of the universe and other people's lives don't revolve around you. And I think that's like eye-opening. Once you start thinking like that, it changes your whole behavior towards the world. It's not about like not giving, not caring about this, but I think it lets you interact with the world in such more nice ways. You know, it just gives you the pleasure of being yourself and not having to constantly be afraid of, am I being judged? Because I think 90% or 99% even of people are so busy with their own lives and probably even being busy with their fear of judgment of others that they don't even realize what you're doing around them. You know, that it's just reality, you guys. It's really reality. And then I also was wanting to find community. Like I said, that was a big point for me, finding community and building this community. And community doesn't always necessarily mean only queer people around you. It can be allies as well, people who respect you, who love you, who are glad to spend time with you, you know, who you want to exchange with. And I think this is so important to have. We are animals that run in packs. We are not solitary as humans. So I think it's really important for us to exchange with the community. And then I also want to create a space for others, you know, create something where I can amplify your voices as well. Hence the ask for your questions, for your comments, for things, because I think that's what makes a community thrive, and that's what I've experienced already. Like, I'm not only talking the offline community, the real, what's real in the end, the community that is there, but also the online community. And I have experienced that through my other channel, Le Demi Chateau, that this community is priceless. Those people who are like you are so amazing. I mean, the way you give me hope, the way we exchange, the way you input your ideas, your thoughts, your stories, it's mind-blowing. I never thought when I started the whole YouTube thing that I would embark on this and I would actually be building a community that is so rich in personalities, so rich in stories, and that it does something with me and it moves me, and I think that's why I want this platform, this podcast / YouTube channel, Gay in Rural France, because I feel like we can build a far more in-depth community here maybe than over on Le Demi Chateau, because Le Demi Chateau is really a very curated look at life in rural France and being the owner of half a chateau and all its challenges that come within and all my renovations. And I think it's good also to be clear. Sometimes I know that again, we're back to the boxes, and I think I've had a really long time where I had a problem with this, that I was thinking like, yeah, but the Demi Chateau, it's me, it's all these things, and I want to talk about this and that and this and that, but I see that it gets confusing if I do all these different things on this channel, because then people who actually follow for the renovation content or just want to live life in France through me and experience the French countryside and experience life in a French chateau, they don't necessarily want this part as well, which I understand, and I know that you're signing up for something, and that you have certain expectations, which is totally fine. It's normal, it's human. So that's why I think this platform is just really amazing for all this exchange and for going deeper, for diving deeper, for talking about more things, literally. So what can you expect in the next few weeks? So I'm planning to have a monthly podcast come out, and episode 2 is going to be I'm lost and I guess you are too. And we're going to talk about uncertainty, about big life changes, because I kind of revolve around this, and I think we all revolve around those topics of change and of constant change. I mean, our bodies change constantly, you know, if you think about it on a cellular level, our cells are getting renewed every day. So it's really part of life, renewal and change. It is in our very skin, and it's part of us. But how do we deal with it? How do we accept with it? How do we overcome a lot of obstacles that come with it, also from our own choices, like moving abroad, for example. And then episode 3 is going to be the expat experience after 2 years. So I'm gonna kind of recap my last 2 years, maybe talk about also the difficulties of living in France, the things I had to overcome, the administrative side of France, talking about more in depth than I had talked about these things on Le Demi Chateau. And if you have some questions, if you're, for example, you're planning to move to France, you're planning to do things here, then put them in the comments down below. I'll be happy to answer them and to give you my feedback and to give you also some insight on what is actually the whole side of administrative France and what to expect and what not to expect, maybe. So you'll get to see what I learned from all my time being here. So yeah, that's kind of like the things that are coming up on this podcast. I would like to kind of keep it going now for this year. So fingers crossed, I will. I can't promise you anything because, sometimes just life gets in the way and then we cannot do anything about it, can we? But if all of this resonates with you, then I would like you to subscribe, to share, and obviously leave a comment down below and we can get exchanging. And I'd love to hear from you. Absolutely, from where you are, what your life is, what your background is. Let's exchange. Maybe we can even, I was thinking even to at one point incorporate interviews with people who watch the channel. So I think it's going to be quite interesting what will be coming up. I will be baking a bit today because I have decided also that I have worked quite a lot this Sunday, and not this Sunday, but this week. But this Sunday, I'm recording this podcast, so I'm working again. But I've decided to take a very slow Sunday. And I think we're going to talk about slow living at one point as well. And I'm going to just bake and enjoy the fire and enjoy my tea. And I shall see all of you next week for episode 2. If you have some comments about episode 2, or if you'd, especially like for episode 3, the expat experience after 2 years, if you have any specific thoughts on this, please leave a comment down below because I'll probably be preparing that episode when this episode airs. And all that is left to say is à bientôt et au revoir from the southwest of France. I shall see you in the next one. Bisous and bye, you guys!